Well, it is indeed a tough act to follow two terrific scientists who have so much to share and so much wit in doing it. But I'm glad to have a chance to talk with you for a few minutes because I think I do bring a little different perspective. And you heard a nice introduction of me with some vague words about my worldview. Let me come clean. I am an atheist. I hope this place has a lightning rod. I am, in fact, an atheist, but maybe not the kind of atheist that comes to mind for you ordinarily, especially if you've been reading Richard Dawkins or what I think Chad called the scientific atheist, what I tend to call the angry atheist. I'm not. I am actually philosophically agnostic. I am open to the possibility that the universe we inhabit had a creator. I resolutely reject the supernatural. I think that's just an incoherent idea that's been handed down. So if there is a creator, I'm convinced that that creator was natural. But I'm open to that idea. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that I'm an equal opportunity unbeliever. Unlike some atheists, I wasn't raised with a God to later reject. And my family lived in several different cultures as I was growing up. So I had exposure to a wide range of what other people believed without ever having a God belief of my own. So it hasn't been a struggle for me. And so I'll say something else that might surprise you coming from an atheist. I know that God is real. I know that God exists. God exists in the minds of believers. And that's not a trivial statement at all. It shapes the lives of believers and it affects the whole world around them. And so, to that extent at least, I know that God is real and important in our world. So important that I spend a lot of time trying to reshape people's beliefs about God. But I have to say philosophically that I'm prepared to say that the creationists might be right. I am an atheist with faith. Not necessarily the same sort of faith that they have, but faith, as I'll explain a little further on. But let's admit that science is a wonderful means of discovering reliable patterns in nature and making useful connections between cause and effect and so on. But I think every scientist in this room will agree with me when I say that science does not capture truth with a capital T. We do not know what the ultimate truth of things is. We can exclude some possibilities with a very high degree of confidence, but we really don't know what truth is. So it just might be that the story that creationists tell is true, but that things appear very, very different. And if there's one thing that science has told us, it's that things often are quite different from how they appear. That said, if the creationist story is true, then this must be false. This is one of many, many Hubble Space Telescope photos of extremely distant objects. So, for the creationist story to be true, there cannot be beautiful galaxies billions of light years distant from us, and yet that's what we see. This must also be false. The Earth history that's been carefully compiled by geologists using multiple methods with converging lines of evidence to render a 4.6 billion year old history of the world. Additionally, this must be false. In case you're not familiar, this is Tiktaalik. It is a transitional fossil. Let's read the rest. This must also be false. The exquisite lineage of fossil skeletons of our hominid ancestors leading up to Homo sapiens in the bottom right. And all of the genetic evidence that underlies that connects us with the bonobos and the other chimpanzees, and from there to the gorillas and the other major primates. All that genetic evidence must be false. This is the truth, according to the Creationist Museum in Kentucky. There are Adam and Eve who knew they were amphibians. That's a new revelation to me. But you'll also notice that they have clear racial markers. They are white people. And that raises a question. How in 6,000 years did we get from Adam and Eve to the wonderful variety of human beings that exist today? I suppose there's an answer for it. I don't know. Well, I'm philosophically open to the possibility that what creationists tell at their seminars is true, but I think it's a vanishingly small probability, so I reject it. I, in fact, embrace the scientific narrative wholeheartedly. But as I said, I am a man of faith. How can that be? You can perhaps understand how Tim and how Chad have faith in their lives, but I've already told you, I'm an atheist and I don't accept the supernatural. How can I have faith? Well, I'm sorry, I had another slide here to show you before I get to that. This is a genuine creationist cartoon. Meanwhile, Jesus and Darwin were fighting again. And I think it's unfortunate for them, truly, because they're waging a losing battle, and their faith hangs entirely on the literal truth of a cartoon version of one particular scripture. But let me get back to mine. I have faith because it's clear to me that faith and religion are quite distinct ideas and quite distinct realities in our world. Now, I'm a journalist, so I think I know how it happened that they came to be used interchangeably in our society. It's because when a slot editor, as I used to be, has to write a headline on a short deadline, he or she always tries to find a short substitute for the word that's really meant. And somehow, faith has come to be used interchangeably with religion, but it's a huge mistake. And I'll try to show you in a very short time that this isn't just my odd idea. It's clear that faith means something very different from religion. Well, first we have to say what religion is. Now, if you open up a dictionary, you'll find a really terrible definition of religion, I suspect. Most dictionaries define religion in Judeo-Christian terms. They don't necessarily specify that, but it's clear that the person who wrote that definition came from our dominant culture and has no notion of Buddhism or the Tao or anything else. And it's ridiculous to try to sum up religion by one instance or two or three instances. Religion is much bigger than that. So I've labored at this for a long time, and I think we have to say that something like this definition is as close as we can come to defining a concept as big as religion. I suggest religion is an institutionalized cultural response to shared beliefs about an ultimate reality, whatever that might be. So, if you keep that in mind, I think you'll see that faith is something quite different. It transcends religion. Faith can be poetic. A 19th century Indian poet said, "Faith is the bird that sings before the dawn." Beautiful word. Faith can clearly be religious, but it doesn't have to be. Faith can be secular, it can be personal, it can be abstract, and of course it can be inspiring. Here's a wonderful instance of faith in action. Certainly religious, but extending out beyond religion to change the world for the better. But here's the flip side. Faith in a commercial product. Is this an illegitimate use of the word faith? I mean, we encounter it regularly. We just switch categories, right? Here's Mark Inglis, I think a New Zealander who lost his legs in a mountaineering accident and was told that he'd never walk again, let alone climb a mountain. But through faith in himself and a lot of determination, he had special prosthetic lower limbs attached, and he climbed Mount Everest. That surely is a legitimate instance of faith. Is he religious? I haven't the slightest idea. Do we have faith in our country? I hope so. It gets tested sometimes. It wears thin. But I think most of us would agree that we have faith in our country. It's an abstract, idealistic kind of faith. For some of us it may overlap with religion. It certainly doesn't have to. So what's faith? Well, I'd like to suggest that faith is the unshakable belief that come what may, some greater good will result in the end. That's faith. It doesn't have to be institutionalized. It doesn't have to be religious. It's just some human trait that is so terribly important to almost all of us that we really shouldn't confuse it with anything else. So, who has faith? Well, I'd suggest that anyone who can look into the future with hope has faith. And that certainly includes what I call old-time religionists. And some of my Christian friends have complained that when I use that term, I'm making them sound bad. So I'm deliberately going outside of the Christian religion here to suggest that there are members of old-time religions who have hope for the future that has very specific characteristics. In this case, it involves a number of virgins in the afterlife. But as you know, there are other hopes for the future, including apparently treasure and other sorts of monetary rewards, according to bumper stickers that I read. But mainstream and liberal Christians, some of whom have only an abstract or metaphorical belief in the claims of Scripture, certainly have faith. So do moderate Muslims, whose interest is more in leading a good life here than thinking about the afterlife. Moderate Muslims like the ones who led the revolution in Egypt last year. Not necessarily the ones who ended up in government, but who led that revolution. And let me say, humanists like myself can have faith. We can have faith that being good today will make a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. And some humanists have faith in all of humanity. And that, I think, would include me. Even transhumanists can have faith. They have faith in the merger of human beings with machines. As a guy who may have to have a knee replacement, I'm not so keen on that. Anyway, so let me wrap this up and throw this open for discussion. In a world torn by differing worldviews, how can we possibly all come together? Well, I think people of goodwill can make a good start by adopting some principles into their faith, whatever that might be. And I have come up with a handy acronym for this. It's a thread that can unite us in good faith. It involves tolerance, humility, reason, empathy, appreciation, and determination. And let me just unpack those a little bit for you so that they're more than slogans. Tolerance goes back to my definition of religion. We recognize that religions are really cultural and institutional responses to shared beliefs about reality. On this understanding, can we say that there is no one right religion, just as there's no one right language or culture? Humility. We accept that as human beings, we have no means of grasping the ultimate order of things. Science takes us an awful long way, but it can't take us all the way. There's something out there that cannot be measured by experiment, that cannot be captured in words in a book, or indeed imagined by any one of us. I think humility would go a long way toward resolving the conflicts, not only between science and religion, but between religion and religion. Well, I won't take you through every one of these because we're running a bit late, but I do finally want to end with determination. We need to have determination to make a better world for the young people alive today, because we are absolutely in the bottleneck of history. Things have never been so good for so many people on the planet as they are right now. And we have the potential to make them even better indefinitely into the future. One of the miraculous inventions of the 20th century was birth control. And if only we can make that an acceptable idea so that we manage the world population in line with the resources that we have, our kids will have a good chance. So we have to determine to figure out ways to live together harmoniously, to resolve the challenges that face us, and to go forward peacefully. With that, thank you very much.